G'day everyone, welcome to On The Wire. It's Warren Davies, the Unbreakable Farmer here, and tonight on the call we've got Simon Sharky Clark, the Shift Initiator. Welcome Simon, thanks for joining me tonight. It's good to have you on, mate.
Thank you, buddy. It's been too long. I'll be happy to have it.
No, it's Simon and I have known each other for a few years now and have been on a similar path, so it's good to have Simon on. He's got a lot going on, so we'll jump into it now and let fill people in on a bit of your journey, mate. A bit of your story. Obviously, I've heard you speak, and your story is quite a riveting one, and one's a little bit of up and down. So yeah, fill us in on a bit of the Simon Sharky Clark story.
Okay, well, I'll try and keep it brief because the story went on for far too long. But let's see, I pretty much left school at 16 and went out into the workforce and started off in a retail career, and probably for about the last 30 years I've been mentoring and managing and leading people through some pretty competitive industries like mass merchant and retail, automotive, high performance. I was probably around the year 2000 when I went into business for myself that the story started to really get interesting and really take a turn for probably not so good. And then after a couple of years, as you start off in business, it's not always great in the first 2 years, and didn't really earn that much like what we were expecting. So put a whole lot of pressure and a whole lot of strain on the marriage back then, and it's almost one thing led to another. But I wound up finding myself on the wrong end of divorce and the wrong end of no house and no wife and no kids, and having to start all over again. So that's probably about sort of 2002, 2003 when I was first properly diagnosed with having quite severe depression. But
so you get to a stage when, like in that, where you have to start all over again. It's that case that something's like if a challenge is confronted you and you're basically back to square one and having to rebuild your whole life again.
Yeah, it was, and I think probably one of the unknown things at the time was you've lived a life for so many years. Like in my case, it was 12 years with the same person. That it's not just the physical changes of things not being there. It's the mindset changes as well, which is how I sort of started on the journey of being able to study a lot more about mindset and study a lot more about what you can do to alter it. I guess it's a case of I had to go there first in order to learn, and probably learnt the hard way.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, it sort of set me on the path that I'm on now. I have been for almost the last 10 years, about wanting to take all of those lessons that I've learnt and all of that study that I've done and all of the scars that I've earned, and make sure that I can help people not to do the same thing that I did.
But do you think that gives you a little bit more in your, we're jumping ahead a bit here, of your coaching, it gives you a little bit more authenticity if you've got those battle scars, like compared to someone that's probably just reading it from a textbook and going about it purely as a clinical, from a textbook point of view?
Yeah, look, there's certainly a bit of that in my mind, and I guess when I'm doing what I do, there's always a point of difference, because whilst I work predominantly in the mental health and mindset space, there's plenty of fully qualified medical professionals out there, which from what I've heard of speaking to so many people over the years, you don't always get to gel with those people. You don't always get to be able to sort of form a bond or a connection. And I've had clients over the years that have said, we've read your book and we've worked with you, and you're able to build rapport because of what you've been through, or because we can understand that when you tell us something about what we're going through and relate it to yourself, that it's actually fair income. And there's points in there that they can feel more strongly connected to. So
yeah, it makes it a bit more relative to the everyday, everyday situation instead of, I've heard that as well, and a lot of people have said like it's pretty hard to connect to someone that's in a white coat.
yeah,
it's a bit more relative if you're a knockabout bloke or like yourself and me, but it's a bit easy to relate to them and build that rapport, because you can even if your story's not the same, and your story, and obviously as we continue on, your story will unfold, but everyone's story is not the same as yours, but there'll be little pieces of your story that people that can relate to.
Yeah. I mean, it's there was a piece there where I was sort of trying to learn what it was like, not just to live on my own, but also to be alone. And I think as I was really suffering depression back then, I started to understand, even though I didn't accept it, but I started to understand being alone and being lonely are two very different things, and they can take you down different paths. For me, I decided to find my own sense of discovery in the bottom of a bottle, and 20 standard drinks in an evening was nothing new for me. I was a 7-day-a-week drunk who was taking prescription medication. I mean, at one stage, I remember washing down a Xanax and I think it was a Panadol or a sleeping tablet or something with a Scotch and Dry. It was just totally on the wrong path and not doing anything really healthy about trying to get well.
Yeah, you stepped onto a treadmill and you just kept going.
Yeah, I think the treadmill is probably a really good analogy, and a couple of other people have said that over the years. But I think also for me is like anybody who may have been in that stage or is in that stage, there's a certain amount of false happy in there. So for 5 minutes you're smiling,
yeah,
which is something incredibly different to what you're doing for the other 5 minutes. But aside from that, I also had a business, so I wound up doing really well in that business because, like many depression sufferers, there were two parts to me. There was the one that was behind closed doors, which was pretty messed up and not doing anything to promote my own well-being. And then there was the other one during the day that was actually trying to hide what was going on and working like a madman and trying to do all of the deals that I could to promote the small business. And I think in the first year, I earned like $22,500 the first year I was up, and now that would have been okay if it was the 50s, but it wasn't. And then by year 4, year 5, I was turning over $500,000. So
yeah,
I knew how I did it. I just wish most of it wasn't by default.
Yeah. So you were just basically you were just on autopilot. You knew what you had to do, and it was all like a little bit trying to hide what the actual reality was going on in your life at that time. Yeah,
it was. And eventually, like anything, if you're living two separate lives and one of them's fake, then that catches up with you. And it caught up with me on August 10, 2006. And that evening was when I decided that I wasn't worth anything to anyone, and everything else in the world seemed to be sorted except for me. So I struggled to find a point to being around, and as I looked around for a few hours, I really couldn't find one. So it was that time of night, it was dark, I hopped into my work van and decided that enough was enough, and I headed out on a dark, lonely road out of my suburb and proceeded to try and take my own life by driving myself into a telegraph pole at speed.
So can you remember vividly, or what was really going through your head at that stage? Like, or were you on autopilot, or was there definite thoughts going through your head?
There was a stage of both. There was me in an absolute breakdown moment, probably a few hours beforehand, where I'm trying to examine all of these things in my life, you know, and where I fit and where do I contribute, you know, where's my self-worth. As I say, you know, leading up to that for possibly 4 to 5 years, I hadn't done a good enough job of just taking appreciation in the smaller things and understanding that there were ways that I can contribute. So when my mindset became so polluted by that amount of negativity, what happened after that was like a switch was thrown, and I just became extremely logical about what I was planning to do next. There was, the emotions had subsided. It was a bit like I'd been all cried out. And when I was in the van, everything was just black and white. There was noise from the tyres on the road, but apart from that, I just remember this black and white movie and then me just logically processing through it. And deciding what I was going to do next became quite simple. It was just a case of turn the steering wheel and we're done.
So on that point of impact, were you conscious? Did you know what was going on? Did you realise what you had done? What were your thoughts then?
The moment that everything stopped, and I realised that there wasn't that much left around me. I remember looking around and hearing absolutely nothing except just the ticking engine and the hiss of fluids coming out of it, and it was really, really silent. And I went into just an automated response of looking around where I was and thinking, okay, well, I've got to get out of here. And I tried to move, and obviously I couldn't. I was pretty pinned because I caved the whole driver's side in upon me. But I just remember hearing the crickets and looking at the stars, and there was a piece of dashboard in front of me. So all I wanted to do was just lay down and fall asleep and not wake up. I was really conscious of that.
Yeah. So moving forward, what happened then?
Well, I got the biggest lucky streak of my life, and I'd survived that incident. So I won't say little incident because it was pretty big. I spent 12 weeks in hospital, and you know it sounds even longer when you say nearly a quarter of a year. I was in and out of wheelchairs and crutches for the next following 2 years, but I had one really important moment when I was brought out of the ICU, and I was just full of tubes and full of everything with machines all connected to me, where I had that realization that, okay, I'm alive, and I want to stay alive. So what's the simplest thing that I could do to shift my mindset from where it is now? And that's when I decided that I wanted to reinvent a different me, a more authentic, a more real version of myself. I didn't want to have to live two lives, you know. Simon, the absolute chronic depressive, drunk at night, and then the businessman during the day. And I found that the easiest way to do that was not to be the person I already was. So every time through my recovery and through the years after that, I would see my patterns of behaviour, and I would see that, oh, you know, I've said no to this or no to that, you know, going out or being with friends. So I'll just try and say yes to a couple more things. And here I am thinking poorly again and negatively of myself. Well, okay, maybe that's not true. Let's just try and find a few more positives about what's going on. And I actually had to start challenging my mindset and the conversations that were in it, as well as also making sure that when I talked to doctors and psychologists and psychiatrists that I was fair income, that I wasn't going, oh, no, she's fine, it's right, it's okay, you know, everything's all right. Just to tell people when you're not okay was something that I really feared, but it's actually quite easy to do. And I was surprised by how many people are receptive to that and have something to offer.
Or liberating as well.
Yeah, that's true.
and it helps you move forward. So it's a massive shift, I suppose, for you from one driving down the freeway or the road wanting to end it all to now saying, no, I don't want to, and I want to move forward. So that's a massive shift. So, and obviously you would have had to build a bit of a team around yourself to be able to achieve that. Like you didn't go about that just by yourself. You would have had a team of people around you.
Yeah, look, I had to build that team, and one of the bigger issues that I had from prior to that night was I hadn't actually surrounded myself with the best of people.
Yeah.
You know, some were good, but most weren't. And what I needed to do was just start paying attention to the things that mattered more to me, because I'd spent a lot of my time, as I know many people do because of the work that I've done, I spent a lot of time trying to please others. And so we all know that the surefire way to unhappiness is to try and please everybody else. You know? Yeah. There's a lot of learning about yourself when you're coming through these situations that you should really take on and just have a crack at in small doses. And one of those is to get the best people that you can around you. It's not about quantity, it's about the quality. And you know, if you're like me and you're not blessed with a huge family, then those quality people can take the form of professionals. Like, find a good GP. Don't just settle for one that's local to you. Maybe drive another half hour to a great one.
Yeah.
You know? Find good people in the mental health space if that's where you need to be. Make those phone calls. Just spend that little bit of extra energy just fostering decent relationships. Yeah. And if you have got lots of family around you, then be honest and be candid and enlist their support. They probably don't understand what it is they can do until you help them understand.
Yeah. So with that life-changing event, obviously it was, and the rebuilding of your life and putting the pieces back together, you obviously you had a passion then that you wanted to share your story and help other people, and that's one of the great things that you're doing now. You're doing great work. You've, as I said, you got a lot on the go. How are you using that story now to help your clients, and when you're speaking or doing your workshops, how are you using that as a catalyst, I suppose, for what your message that you're trying to get across, and how you're going to help other people? Yeah,
well, part of what I do is about helping people understand how to shift their mindset and create long-lasting positive influences in their way of thinking, in the conversations that they have. And my story forms a part of the introduction to things. I wrote a book which I started thinking and fleshing out the ideas for the book back in 2007 when I first got out of hospital. And one of the important factors about writing the book was being completely honest and open with my story, so that others could read it, and if they recognised themselves in there, that was great. If they were happy to read a tale that was inspiring and led somewhere positive, that was great too. And from that, I developed a couple of keynotes where I could also share that. But at one stage, probably around sort of 2008, 2009, I realised exactly what it was that I wanted to do, and my story formed the part of being the introduction to people to say that not only is what he's talking about on stage or what he's delivering in workshops or what he's writing in blogs, not only is that really good, but the backstory's equally informative, if you like, or to some people they consider it entertaining. I don't really mind which, but I just want to get the information out there and get lots of conversations started.
Well, it gives you that backstory, gives you credibility, and it mightn't come in the piece of a certificate hanging on your wall.
Yeah,
and it gives you that credibility it does. It makes you an expert in that field because you've been there.
Yeah, I guess that's probably true. I mean, I really struggle with the expert tag. And I don't know why. Maybe that's my thing. But yeah, I've certainly lived it, and I've certainly got some things to say about it. And yeah, over the years, again, talking to medical professionals and talking to people that have helped me design a few of the programs that I've got, it has come as a point that the story is valuable, not just because I think it is, but it became more valuable when people started reading it and listening to it and joining in with it. And I would have people come up to me or just email me and say, I found this, or it changed that, and it was able to help me understand this. And I've even had people say to me, my partner, like, I can read my partner in this book, and
yeah,
thank you, because now I know how to get conversation started and get something changing and shifting.
And I suppose that you, like myself, like if it helps one person, if one blog or one keynote helps one person, well, you've achieved you've achieved your outcome, because that's what it's all about.
Yeah, and I mean, you and I were discussing that a few years ago, and I think I said to you, look, my only goal out of writing the book was, for Melbourne viewers, they'll understand this, but the main goal was, if it can stop one person jumping off the West Gate, then I've hit it. Yeah. Everything else after that is the bonus, and it's just cream, and I won't measure that. I just want to know that it's done one good thing, and I'll be okay.
Yeah, and that's a fantastic way to go about it. Apart from your passion of wanting to help people, what other passions have you got? I know that you've got one particular passion that you'd probably like to talk a little bit about, but apart from helping people in the story, there's obviously another passion. Do you want to just relate a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, it's one that you'll probably struggle to shut me up on, but I'm an absolute mad keen motorcyclist, that's for sure.
Yeah, and
not Harleys. So sorry to all of the Hog Brigade. I'm a Jap sports bike enthusiast from way back. Nearly 50 years old now. What was it, 2015? I got back from laps in Nürburgring in Germany. So yeah, I take my fun and stupidity pretty seriously.
Yeah. You like living on the edge on two wheels.
Yeah, I think that there's definitely that thrill seeker in me, and I do love living the cliche of being outside the comfort zone. When the motorcycle's in fine form and taking me through places where I'm absolutely scared inside, but I'm still doing it. It's a big rush, and I sort of get that same thing when doing the work that I do. It becomes really when you're outside your comfort zone, and you're up there on stage, or you're working in front of a group of people in a workshop. It's the rush of knowing that you're contributing too. It makes me equally as passionate about that as it does just about living.
Yeah.
And having something worthwhile to just keep on giving.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, mate, just to wind it up, obviously, as I said, you've got stuff going on and something that you haven't touched on, but you're doing a bit of work with the Are You OK people. And,
yep, absolutely. Great bunch of people. And that's probably an example of alignment. Because I was always, one of the things I said that I always wanted to do on this journey was get to a point where I could raise enough funds to go and do some work for the Men's Shed organisation, just all for free. An opportunity came up to be put in front of Are You OK as a community ambassador, and I was fortunate enough for them to say yes. And as far as alignment is concerned with what I'm trying to do and what they already do really well, it's one and the same, and that is, as I've mentioned already, the conversation. Our mindset's full of conversations that we may or may not find difficult to have, but Are You OK is all about starting a conversation and checking in with people, and just if you're willing to ask that question of those around you, then just be willing to have the conversation that comes after it if they turn around and say, you know what, actually, I'm not okay. And I really resonate with that. And I was just, I did a 2-day conference with them back in February, and we had an absolute ball up in Sydney. So I'm really looking to do some great things on behalf of those guys.
Yeah, that's absolutely fantastic. So, and apart from that stuff, mate, your own workshops and your blog and all that, where can people find you? Like website, Facebook page,
Yep.
Where can they find you? And even your book, obviously, something that we haven't touched on, but it's a pretty big achievement to be an author, a published author, and that's what you are. And so you've got a book available as well. Where can everyone find, anyone that's watching, where can they either get in touch with you or find those resources?
Yeah, look, pretty easy. They can start with the website, which is theshiftinitiator.com.au. Plenty on the homepage there, and plenty in the blog as well. If you go onto the homepage, you'll find a spot on there to be able to sign up for the blog. It's free, and everybody who signs up, they get a copy of my book, Shift Your View. They get the ebook copy, absolutely free. If you want to purchase a paperback, I only charge the postage, and you can get that at thebook.shiftyourview.com.au. Or you can look me up on Facebook under Shift Your View as well. So I'm pretty easy to find.
Oh, fantastic, mate. Once again, thanks for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure as usual when we get to catch up and have a chat. It's always good to have a chat to you, and I really appreciate you being involved with On The Wire, and hopefully we'll catch up soon, mate.
No worries at all, Warren. Thanks so much for the opportunity, mate. You take care.
No worries. Cheers, mate. Bye.